In the summer of 1995, two young lovers stepped into Yosemite's vast wilderness, hearts full of promise and minds set on adventure. They never came back. Their journey ended not with chaos, but with an unsettling stillness. No cries, no struggle, just the final mark of their path. A tree, eerily carved with strange numerals. And then, nothing. But nearly 3 decades later, in July 2024, that silence was broken. A brutal wildfire known as the Signal Fire tore through the Sierra National Forest, scorching 7,000 acres of rugged terrain. What remained was a graveyard of charred timber and ash swirling like snow across a haunted landscape. Amidst the devastation, firefighters unearthed something unnatural, a metal hatch warped by fire, protruding from sunken earth like a coffin's lid forcing its way up. Miles Ortiz, a seasoned hotshot crew leader, was the first to see it. The hatch was blackened and brittle around the edges, its integrity cracked as if something, or someone, had once tried to break free. 10 feet upslope, a tree still stood, miraculously upright but scorched to the marrow. On its trunk, hidden beneath soot, were Roman numerals gouged deep into the bark. 9 tree. 9. The symbol. The place. Ortiz turned, and the look on the older firefighter's face behind him said it all. He took off his helmet slowly, eyes locked on the hatch. "They were right," he whispered. "It's real." Ortiz's stomach dropped. The missing couple, San Francisco hikers from 1995, had left their final trail marker right here. That tree, this place. Now, with the door buckled outward and a crowbar visibly bent from the inside, it was clear. Someone had tried, desperately, to escape. And an hour later, Sheriff Lena Bauer arrived at the scene, standing silently above the exposed bunker. Time hadn't dulled her memory. She had been just a rookie when the case of Holly and Jacob Given went cold. Now, the ash-coated air around her pulsed with the weight of unfinished business. A local news crew hovered nearby, cameras itching to roll. She turned them away. What lay beneath that blackened earth wasn't just ruins. It was a grave, a time capsule, a confession. When her deputy handed her the melted remains of an old trail camera, surprisingly intact, its memory card untouched by fire, she felt a cold ripple deep in her chest. Something she hadn't felt since '95. Dread. "Get this digitized," she said sharply, "and pull every trail log from July 1995, every name." At first glance, the bunker seemed empty. Sterile, no furniture, no lights, just soot, decay, and the remnants of someone's last days. A single sleeping bag, burned journals with curled, blackened edges. But in the far corner, by a rotted wall, something protruded. Bone, a radius, human, and below it, a shredded strip of blue nylon. Sheriff Bauer dropped to her knees, breath caught in her throat. It matched the raincoat Jacob Given had worn the day he vanished. The story rewinds. July 15th, 1995. Under a perfect sky, Holly and Jacob signed into the Yosemite Trail Register. Their names nestled between cheerful family entries and college kids on summer break. Holly's cursive was fluid and whimsical. She drew a tiny sun beside their names, scrawling a note, "Looping north past Ridge Hollow. Returning Monday. Just the two of us." Jacob stood close behind her, backpack secured, laminated maps in hand, a man of order and caution. He wasn't just prepared, he was obsessed with precision. A civil engineer by trade, he measured water by ounces and angles by degrees. The ranger who watched them from the visitor center wouldn't remember their faces. To her, they were just another couple. Young, smiling, sun-kissed. But beneath those smiles, tension simmered, unspoken, invisible. They carried it like extra weight in their packs. The early miles passed in silence. Jacob led, eyes on the map, steps calculated. Holly followed, camera bouncing from her neck. She captured fleeting details, Moss on stone, the slant of sun through cedar. But not Jacob. He didn't ask her to. She didn't offer. By noon, they reached a faded trail marker, Trail 4, a ravine crossing. Jacob paused. He wanted to double-check their loop. "I don't want to overshoot Tree 9, he muttered, brow furrowed. Holly sighed, adjusting her pack. "The tree's not going anywhere." He didn't smile. Tree 9 wasn't on the new GPS maps anymore. It was a landmark from old hikers' notes, a place of lore, initials carved, ribbons tied. Jacob insisted on using paper maps and compasses. Authenticity, he called it. Or maybe it was just his way of keeping control. The forest thickened. By mid-afternoon, they veered off trail, boots crunching through dense brush. Jacob counted his steps under his breath. Holly, now lagging, felt sweat pooling down her spine. They hadn't spoken since lunch. Only birds and the dry rasp of leaves answered their silence. And then finally, a clearing. The tree stood at the center like a sentinel, its bark darker, rougher, limbs twisted as if in pain. Near the base, a scar, a jagged carving etched violently into its flesh, 9 Tree 9. "Here," Jacob said, almost to himself. Holly raised her camera. Light was fading, slipping between branches like gold dust. She clicked once, then again, then a sound, a crack, behind her. She turned, but nothing moved, just trees. Jacob didn't notice. He was unpacking gear, methodical as ever. She didn't mention the sound, not that one, or the second, softer, closer, like someone stepping slowly through fallen leaves. They pitched the tent near boulders, close to the tree. Holly arranged the sleeping bags. Jacob built the stove ring. "I'm going to grab a few more shots," she said, voice thin. "Don't go far," he replied, not looking up. "Sun sets in an hour." She wandered west, into the growing shadows. More rustling. This time she called out, "Hello?" No answer. She took one last picture, and as she turned, she froze. Someone was watching. A figure, far between the trees. Tall, still, then gone, and just like that, night fell, quick and merciless. They ate in silence beneath a sky thick with stars that felt oddly distant, like cold witnesses. Jacob scribbled in his weathered leather journal, every line measured and deliberate. Holly lay flat on her back, camera on her chest, flashlight dimmed to a faint halo. Her voice cut the stillness. "That tree gives me the creeps." Jacob didn't lift his head. "It's just a tree." "No," she said after a beat. "I think someone else is out here. I saw something, maybe an animal or a shadow, but it was standing upright." She paused, unsure of her own senses. "The woods play tricks," he replied, gently closing his journal. She didn't argue, but unease crawled beneath her skin like a second layer. She had seen someone, tall, unmoving, watching. She curled her fingers tightly around the camera strap and closed her eyes. Not because she felt safe, but because there was nothing else to do. At the ranger station miles away, no one noticed that their trail log entry had been tampered with. A page had been torn, violently removed. Only a word remained on the jagged scrap. Monday. Half finished, half erased. July 16th, 1995. Holly woke before dawn. The air inside the tent felt wet, as if breath had grown heavy overnight. She reached across the sleeping bags. Empty. "Jacob," she whispered into the dark. No reply. She unzipped the flap. Pale morning light bled through the trees. Their gear was still there, backpacks leaning against a tree like sentinels. But his boots were missing. So was the camera. Barefoot, arms wrapped around herself, she stepped into the clearing. No footprints, just long shadows cast by trees that now seemed too tall, too quiet. Her breath hitched. Behind the boulders, nothing. Then, movement. Jacob reappeared from the east, camera in hand. He looked off, paler, shaken. "You scared me," she said. "I couldn't sleep," he murmured, handing back the camera. "Thought I saw something last night. There's a fork about 200 yards that way. It's not on the map." "Did you find anything?" He hesitated. "Just trees." But his hands trembled as he lit the stove and poured water into the pot. They broke camp soon after. Jacob's mood had shifted, sharp, quiet, like a wire pulled too tight. He was fixated on discrepancies between the land and his map. "Something's off," he kept saying. Holly, sensing his unraveling, suggested they turn back. "No," he said. "We're close. I just need to check one thing." They hiked east, toward the area Jacob had explored. About 20 minutes in, the trail ended abruptly at a bluff, overlooking a tangled valley of sagebrush and thorns. But it wasn't the terrain that stopped them cold. It was the scrap of blue nylon, caught on a branch, fluttering like a signal. Holly recognized it instantly. "Raincoat," she said. "Looks like it," Jacob replied. She lifted her camera and snapped a photo. Then, click, another shutter. But this time, it wasn't her camera. They spun around. No one. Jacob scanned the tree line, his breath sharp and uneven. "Someone's messing with us," he muttered. They turned back quickly, moving fast, but when they returned to the clearing, something had changed. A third boot print. Smaller than Jacob's, larger than Holly's. Fresh. Right next to their tent. Someone had stood there while they were gone. That same afternoon, back at the ranger station, a seasonal employee named Avie Dale sat at her desk inputting trail data into their aging IBM. Her fingers froze. Entry number 417, Holly and Jacob, Ridge Hollow Loop, 10:47 a.m. Below that, blank. But there wasn't supposed to be a blank. She opened the physical logbook. July 15th, torn. She checked the digital backup. A second entry, number 418, had been typed before the system auto-saved. It wasn't in cursive. It wasn't signed. 7:21 a.m. A message. They said Tree 9 was safe. They lied. Avie hovered her finger over the delete key. Prank? Maybe. But the timestamp came before Holly and Jacob even signed in. So who wrote it? And where were they now? That night, Jacob sat outside the tent sharpening sticks with his penknife. Not for kindling, but into points. When Holly suggested they leave at dawn, he didn't argue. The fear had finally reached him. They lay in silence, but only one of them slept. Holly stared at the forest beyond the mesh window, camera clutched tightly. When sleep finally took her, it brought with it dreams of blue nylon wrapped tight around her ankles, pulling her into an abyss. July 17th. They set off at first light. No breakfast, no words. Just boots, crunching dry leaves and the clatter of gear. The trail was narrower now, the forest heavier. Holly kept glancing back. The forest had changed, or maybe they had. More than once, Jacob stopped to check his compass, then the map, then the terrain. "This isn't right," he said, voice low. "It wasn't this steep yesterday." "You mean we're lost?" she asked. He didn't answer. By midday, they stopped at a rocky ledge. Holly sat, pulled out the camera. The battery was low. She scrolled through their photos. Jacob near Tree 9. The nylon. Their food from the day before. The boot print. Then, something she hadn't taken. A grainy photo of her and Jacob, walking away, shot from behind. From the trees. Her hand shook. The next photo, Jacob urinating at the edge of camp. Another, her sleeping, viewed through the tent flap. Every photo was time-stamped from the night before. She turned to Jacob. "Someone's using my camera." He grabbed it, scanned the images, then stood. "We're not safe out here." They didn't make it far. The trail was gone, vanished like it had never existed. They camped again, early and not by choice. They fought, blamed each other for not marking the path, for ignoring warning signs. But it wasn't real anger. It was fear, leaking from every pore. They slept in shifts, or tried to. Holly kept the camera against her chest. She couldn't lose it again. Around 2 a.m. she heard it. Not wind, not trees, a whisper, a voice, her name. Breathed, not spoken. Holly. She sat up. Jacob was asleep. She crawled to the flap. Nothing. Then, a flash, white, bright as lightning, a camera flash, 20 feet away, deep in the trees. She didn't wake him. She just cried into her sleeping bag and waited for light. Meanwhile, in 2024, Deputy Ravi Singh at the Mariposa County Sheriff's Department opened the digitized trail cam recovered from the fire. The outer shell was half melted, but the card had survived. He clicked through image after image. Wildlife, hikers, the usual. Then he stopped. A photo. 2 backpackers holding hands beside a carved pine. Tree 9, Jacob and Holly, frozen in time, seconds before everything changed. The timestamp read July 17th, 1995, 9:42 a.m. At first, the photo seemed like the others, Jacob and Holly standing near Tree 9, hand in hand, framed by morning light. But just beyond them, hidden in the darker fringe of forest, another shape emerged. Blurry, shadowed. A human figure, barely discernible between the trees, watching. The next few frames captured a silent sequence of dread. The couple unaware, walking, laughing faintly, Jacob pointing toward the horizon. And behind them, the shadow grew closer. Frame by frame, it crept. Until, in the final image, the couple was gone. Only the silhouette remained. That night, the sun slipped behind the ridge, swallowing the sky in bruised purples and grays. With it went the last sliver of hope. Huddled under their rain tarp, Holly trembled. She hadn't stopped shaking since the flash in the woods. Jacob sat beside her, flashlight in hand, its beam flickering weakly. The batteries were dying, like them, fading with time and pressure. "Let's just head downhill tomorrow," Jacob muttered. "Follow the slope till we hit the creek. The fire road has to be there." But Holly didn't reply. She stared at her boots, hands tucked under her arms, her lips bloodless with fear. The camera sat beside her, zipped tight in its case like a coffin for memories she couldn't yet face. She hadn't told Jacob about the voice, how it had whispered her name the night before. She didn't have to, because this time, Jacob heard it too. Just after midnight, while he kept watch with his knife resting on his knee, the silence shattered. Holly jerked awake at the sudden motion. Jacob was on his feet, eyes scanning, flashlight trembling. "What?" she whispered. "Shh. Listen." A voice drifted from the trees, software close. "Jacob," not shouted, not screamed, spoken, almost tenderly, like a memory crawling out of the dark. "Jacob." He spun, the light cutting through the trees. The voice moved. First to the left, then the right, then behind them. It circled. "Pack up," he said. "Now." No questions, no hesitation. They moved beneath a moonless sky, running on instinct and adrenaline. No trail, no compass, just blind momentum. Holly followed Jacob. Something followed them both. The deeper they ventured, the more unreal the forest became. The air no longer moved. The trees stood too still. Time seemed to ripple and fold. Twice they passed the same fallen log, identical, down to the split bark. At 3 a.m., they stumbled onto something impossible. A metal hatch embedded in the hillside, 6 feet across, circular, military grade, buried under moss and debris, like a secret meant to rot in silence. "What the hell is this?" Jacob whispered. Holly stepped forward slowly. "Looks like a Cold War shelter." There was no handle, just a narrow slit across its surface. Jacob scraped the grime with his sleeve. Beneath the soot, a symbol etched in steel. Not letters, numbers, 9th tree, 9th tree. 9. They didn't try to open it, not yet. But then something moved behind them. Holly spun, camera raised, flash, a face, pale, wide-eyed, inches from her. The camera dropped as she screamed. Jacob yanked her backward, raising the flashlight, but the face had vanished. The woods were empty again. Except the hatch had shifted. Now open, barely. An inch of darkness, a silent invitation. Neither spoke. Jacob stepped forward, staring into the crevice. A faint chemical draft rose from within. Wet metal and cold decay. "Don't," Holly whispered. But he reached out anyway. His fingers slid into the crack. The hatch opened with terrifying ease. Beneath it, stairs. Mounted to the wall, just inside, a trail camera, blinking red. July 2024. Mariposa County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff Lena Bauer leaned over a new set of photos. These weren't from the fire-damaged trail cam. These came from within the bunker, found in a waterproof case near the hatch. Hundreds of images. Dozens of people, teens, children. All posed the same way, backs against concrete, hands folded, eyes vacant. Some were too still. Her deputy entered, pale and shaking. "We found something under the floor." "What is it?" "A crawl space, padded, chains, one cot, one old raincoat." He held up a torn strip of nylon. "Jacob's. And Sheriff. The walls covered in carvings. Like tallies, thousands." Lena stared at a photo of the metal hatch. "Someone sealed them in," she whispered, "and someone else watched." Back in 1995. Holly and Jacob stood at the edge of the open hatch. The stairwell yawned downward, dripping moisture and dread. The flashlight's beam shook as Jacob gripped it like a weapon. Holly's gaze was fixed on the blinking red light. "Someone's been using this," Jacob whispered. "No," she said. "They never stopped." The descent took 27 steps, each one colder than the last. Rusted pipes lined the walls. A soft hum vibrated through the concrete. Machinery still running. A door waited at the bottom, slightly ajar. Inside, darkness, a room, bare, 12 by 15 feet. Concrete walls, a cot in the corner, a child's sleeping bag, a rusted tray of plastic utensils. On the opposite wall, a dead camera. Lens cracked. Above the cot, carved deep into the concrete. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3, and on. Today 647. Then nothing. A slash across the bottom. The hallway beyond led to another chamber, larger, lined with metal shelves. VHS tapes, hundreds, some labeled, some numbered, some named. Holly reached for one. It was handwritten in black marker. Tree 9, Session 6, Jacob G. "Jacob?" she whispered. But he was silent, staring at the opposite wall where grainy photographs had been taped, black and white images like trophies. Many had decayed into ghosts, but one was unmistakable. Holly, sleeping in her tent. Timestamp 2 days ago, then the sound. Footsteps. Above them. Slow, deliberate. Jacob killed the light. They held their breath. The hatch above creaked. Hinges groaned, then slammed. The echo rang like a gunshot. Holly bolted, climbed the stairs slipping, palms scraped. Jacob close behind. She reached the top, pushed, nothing, no lock, no latch, just smooth, featureless metal, sealed. They were trapped. Back in the room, a low hum returned. A monitor flickered to life. Static buzzed. Then a live image. The sleeping chamber. Holly and Jacob. Framed perfectly, being watched again. July 2024, FBI Field Office, Fresno, California. Special Agent Dana Kellerman reviewed the digitized footage. One tape stood out. A boy, thin, feral, staggering from the hatch in 2004. His name was Mason Aldridge. Vanished in 1997. 12 years old. No one had ever connected the cases. Back in 1995. Jacob slumped against the concrete. "We need to find another way out." "There isn't one," Holly whispered. She held a second tape. Its label. Session 1. Holly, July 15th. The day they arrived. The day everything started. She slid the tape into the player. Her thumb hovered over the button, trembling. Jacob sat on the edge of the cot, hands clasped so tightly between his knees they trembled. He stared at the concrete floor like it held answers no map could ever give. On the screen before them, the static gave way to grainy footage. Dim light. A familiar angle. The same room they were in now. Same cot, same camera position, same sense of cold, sterile dread. But the girl on the screen wasn't Holly. Wasn't anyone they knew. She looked about 14, thin, pale, her arms wrapped around her legs. Her eyes flicked toward the camera every few seconds, but she never spoke. A timestamp hovered in the corner. July 3rd, 1993, 10:14 a.m. Silence. Then the door in the video creaked open. Only part of a man was visible. A hand, a forearm, a torso cloaked in a flannel shirt. He placed a sandwich and a water bottle on the tray beside the girl and said in a voice too soft to be kind, "Good girl, we'll try again tonight." The door closed. She didn't move. 4 minutes passed in silence before the screen blinked to black. Jacob surged forward, yanking the tape from the player. "I can't. We need to get out now." Holly picked up her flashlight, forcing her shaking hand steady. "There's a locked panel by the pipe," she whispered. "I think it might lead somewhere." They moved quickly. Behind the tape room, the corridor tightened. Holly knelt before the rusted panel, her light sweeping the floor. And then she froze. Scratched faintly into the concrete were words. "Stop recording, stop watching, stop digging." And beneath those, "No way out." Jacob leaned heavily against the wall. "We're going to die down here." "No," Holly said, her voice thin but fierce. "Not if we understand what this place is, and what it was meant to do." Later, back in the main chamber, the air had grown thinner. Their last bottle of water was nearly gone. Holly's fingers were numb. She picked up another tape, unlabeled. The footage that played was worse than before. It was her, sleeping in their tent. From 2 nights ago. The camera zoomed, steadied, and from behind it, a voice whispered, "You're perfect." So perfect. Holly stumbled back, nausea rising in her throat. Jacob lunged forward, ejected the tape, and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the concrete. Silence. Then a voice, low and distant, echoed from the ceiling vents. Session 2 begins tonight, July 2024, FBI Evidence Lab. Agent Kellerman sat rigid in front of a monitor. The tape on screen showed a boy, no older than 13, chained to the same cot, blinking at a harsh overhead bulb. Off camera, the same voice purred. "Look at the camera. Show them how good you've been." Kellerman turned to her tech. "Can we isolate that voice?" Still distorted. "Could be pre-recorded. Cross-check this bunker's layout against military installations within 50 miles of Tree 9. If nothing shows, we keep digging." 1995. Underground. Holly sat alone, staring at the static. In her hand, another tape. Faintly scratched on the back. Exit Protocol. July 1995. She inserted it. Blocky white text on a black screen. Exit Protocol, version 3.1, for internal use only. Then, a new scene. A man in a park ranger uniform stood before a chalkboard filled with diagrams. He looked official, middle-aged, glasses low on his nose, but his badge didn't say Yosemite. It read, North Ridge Conservation and Behavioral Studies Unit. "Welcome," he began. "This orientation is for new custodians assigned to Tree 9 sector." He went on. "This installation is part of Project Ardan, authorized jointly by the Department of Interior and the private behavioral initiative known as the Sylvan Accord. The purpose? To study long-term psychological effects of isolation, confinement, and surveillance under limited intervention conditions. The bunker, a human laboratory. Subjects are selected via trail-based observation or off-grid extraction. Once Session 2 begins, external contact is strictly forbidden. If breached, the hatch will be sealed permanently. Exit is possible only through the interior drainage corridor. Holly paused the tape. "Drainage corridor," she whispered. "There's another way out." Jacob stood instantly. "Then we find it." They searched the bunker with renewed desperation. Behind a warped shelving unit in the far back chamber, Holly found it. A crawl space. Narrow. Hidden. Jacob used the broken flashlight handle to loosen the bolts. As he worked, Holly turned and stopped. The monitor was back on. It showed them, "Live," from a ceiling camera they hadn't seen. The image flickered, then cut to black. New text appeared. "You weren't supposed to find this. Now there is no exit." Jacob wrenched the final bolt free. The panel dropped with a crash. A cold, narrow tunnel opened into shadow. "We're going," he said. Holly nodded. They crawled, elbows scraping concrete, knees raw. After 20 feet, the duct split. Left, down, rotting air, standing water, right. A faint breeze. They chose right. It grew tighter, their breath fogged in the cold. Finally, moonlight, a grate. Jacob pushed. "Nothing." Again, Holly whispered. He slammed his shoulder into it. Metal groaned, but held. Again, then crack. But it wasn't the grate. Jacob collapsed, blood from his mouth. Still. "No," Holly gasped. "Please." Number behind her, the whisper returned. Close enough to feel. Session 2 was never canceled. July 2024. Northern California. Sheriff Bauer stepped through the remains of a compound swallowed by forest. Fire had gutted the main structure years ago, but a sign remained. Faded, rusted. SILVENACCORDBEHAVIORALFIELDUNIT. NRSECTOR. Her deputy called to her. "Sheriff, look at this." A box. Inside, Polaroids, names, timestamps, children, adults, all tagged with Tree 9. "Cross-reference everyone," she said coldly. "If even one matches a cold case, we're bringing the FBI back in." Because Tree 9 wasn't just a forest. It was a wound, and it had never closed. 1995, termination point, drainage tunnel. Holly's body trembled uncontrollably. She was wedged in the pipe, knees jammed, bruises blooming across her skin. Jacob's lifeless form was slumped beside her, still warm, but unmoving. The grate above her held firm, thick steel bars sealed tight like judgment. But just beyond it, flickering weakly, was something she hadn't dared hope for. A motion sensor light. Still working, maintained. There was an exit. She knew it, but something deeper whispered that she hadn't earned it yet. July 19th, 1995. Concurrent timeline. Yosemite National Park Ranger Station, 7:12 a.m. Ranger Tess Caldwell scribbled a note in the trail log margin. "Mason given, overdue. Scheduled return. July 17th. No check-in. Flag for follow-up." Standard procedure. Hikers were late all the time. Most showed up a few days later, sunburned and apologetic. But something about Holly's handwriting nagged her. That looping sun beside their names, a cheerful symbol that now felt like a cruel joke. Tess stood and walked to the corkboard. A faded map of pre-GPS trails hung there, torn at the corners, curling with time. She traced her finger along the path they'd taken. North past Ridge Hollow? Trail 4, Tree 9. The old trail marker was still there, barely. She pulled the map down, climbed into her Jeep, and drove. 8:03 a.m. Forest ridge. Birdsong, wind. The crunch of pine beneath her boots. Tess scanned the forest edge, eyes catching on a glint in the brush. Plastic, circular. A lens cap, camera-sized, buried in dirt. She pocketed it and moved forward. Then she saw it. The clearing. Tree 9 still stood, its trunk blackened by age and fire, leaning slightly as if burdened by time. She stepped closer. Something new had been carved beneath the Roman numeral. A fresh mark. No exit. Back at the station, Tess radioed the sheriff's office. "This is Ranger Caldwell. 2 overdue hikers. Last contact 3 days ago. Tree 9 sector, requesting aerial sweep of Ridge Hollow." She didn't mention the lens cap or the carving. Not yet. Something about the land itself felt wrong. July 2024, FBI Evidence Lab. Agent Dana Kellerman held the latest artifact from the Tree 9 excavation, a blue nylon raincoat, child-sized, inside one pocket, wrapped in plastic, a crumpled note. Ink smeared but legible in fragments. "Still alive, session never ends, exit is not above." Below that, he said, "No one escapes Tree 9. She circled the final sentence. "Tree 9 isn't a location," she said aloud. "It's a system." 1995. Underground. Holly tried to move Jacob's body. She couldn't. The pipe was too narrow. Her legs were numb, her voice hoarse. Her fists bled from pounding the grate. Still, she screamed until her throat cracked, and then metal scraped metal. A silhouette appeared, a figure above the grate. "Please," Holly cried, "please, help me." The shape leaned down. A face, not a man, a girl, maybe 15, pale, dirty, eyes wide with fear. "You shouldn't be down here," the girl whispered. "Please, open it." The girl blinked back tears. "I can't. I'm not allowed." She stepped back slowly, like she'd just broken a sacred rule. Then she disappeared. That night, inside the Tree 9 bunker, a screen lit up. Live feed. Holly sobbing in the pipe, Jacob's body behind her. A mechanical voice repeated, cold and flat. Session 2. Psychological deterioration, Phase 3, engaged. Subject 46, collapse. Subject 47, non-responsive. Then another screen flickered on. The girl, the one from above, sitting in a new room, pale, crying. She looked straight into the camera. "He knows. They're here," she whispered. "He says we have to choose." Hours later. The tunnel was colder now. Time had fractured. Then, clinks, bolts unscrewing. The face returned. The girl, trembling, crying. "I can't take you out," she whispered, "but I can let you back in." Before Holly could ask what that meant, the grate opened. The girl reached down. "Follow me." The tunnel led to a chamber Holly had never seen. Deeper, older. The girl moved like someone sleepwalking through her own nightmare. She turned down a maintenance hall, barefoot, gaunt, in a tattered shirt. "My name's Mara," she said. "I've been here 10 years, I think." 10. I was 5. They said I was chosen, that I'd help fix the world. They ducked into a maintenance corridor lined with pipes and rusted shelves. Mara closed the door behind them. "You're not the only one," she said. "There were others. Before me, after me." She reached into a vent and pulled out a plastic bag. Inside, old photos, curled, water-damaged, children, all posed the same way, against the wall Holly had seen on tape. Mara pointed to one. Subject 19, my sister. What happened to her? "She died in the drainage tunnel." Holly recoiled. "She made it out, but didn't make it far. They found her, punished me." Mara lifted her shirt. Scars, fresh and old. "I stopped trying to escape after that." A distant siren pulsed, low and cold. Mara's face paled. "He's watching again." "Who?" Holly asked. "The custodian," Mara whispered. "He was never supposed to stay, but he liked it, said the surface was dying, that this would be the new world." Upstairs, control room. Monitors flickered, dozens of feeds. One showed Mara with Holly. One showed Jacob's still form. Another, above ground, showed the clearing at Tree 9. A new boot print in the dirt, fresh. July 2024. Forensics Archive, Sacramento. Kellerman stood over a spread of recovered ID cards. Project Arden. Experimental isolation. Tree 9 sector. Tier 3. One card highlighted in red, Custodian, R. Hollis. She exhaled slowly. They weren't just looking for a place. They were hunting a man who had made himself into a system. 1997. Status: presumed dead, but not confirmed. Agent Dana Kellerman muttered the words under her breath. Her assistant entered, visibly shaken. "We just pulled footage from the final unmarked VHS, ma'am. It's dated 2003. Kellerman's brow furrowed. No one was supposed to survive beyond 2000. The assistant nodded. That's what makes it worse. Back in 1995. Tree 9 bunker. Mara handed Holly a folded napkin, a crude but detailed map, drawn in blue pen. Jagged corridors, numbered rooms, scribbled warnings. "This hallway," Mara whispered, pointing to a segment marked W, "leads to the observation gallery. If he's there, that's your only chance." "To do what?" Holly asked. "To end it." Mara's voice cracked. "There's a switch, hidden. It controls the systems, the power. If you find it, maybe the upper hatch will release." "Come with me." "I can't," Mara said softly. "I'm not allowed beyond my sector." She hesitated. "I don't even remember what the sun looks like." Before Holly turned away, Mara pressed something into her hand, a bright yellow plastic toy key, scuffed and faded. "It fits one door." "Which one?" Mara didn't answer. Only one warning. "Don't look behind the green door. Ever. If you do, he wins." The hallway swallowed Holly whole. Somewhere deep within the walls, something clicked. A voice echoed, synthetic, deadpan. "Subject 47 has exited assigned zone. Session 2 escalation initiated. Custodian en route." Holly moved quickly. Every footstep reverberated like a countdown. Cameras tracked her above every door. Click, click, watching. Room R, then S, then V, then the green door. Faded, sickly in color. No lock, no camera. The label scratched off. Beneath it, scrape marks, as if it had been opened and slammed again and again. Mara's warning echoed. "Don't look behind the green door," but Holly paused. She heard it. Wet breathing, rhythmic, not human, not quite. Then whispering, musical, wrong. "I see you, I see you, I see you." It wasn't a voice. It was a presence trying to be a voice. She ran. Door W, locked. She remembered the toy key. Instinct. She pressed it, not into the keypad, but into a hidden latch beneath it. Click. The door opened. A corridor darker than the rest, steeped in unnatural cold. At the end, a wall of glass. The observation gallery. Rooms beyond, concrete boxes under fluorescent lights. Room A, cot, coloring book, chains. Room B, bloody prints smeared on walls. Room C, a mirror. Her reflection blinked back, pale, bruised, blinking. Then movement. Someone stepped into the frame behind her. She turned. No one. But the door had opened, and the custodian was waiting. His uniform was once that of a ranger, now filthy, too small for his frame. His face sagged beneath unshaven stubble. Eyes bloodshot. A scar split from jaw to collarbone. He tilted his head. "Subject 47, he said. "You weren't meant to see this level." "Where's Jacob?" she rasped. "He served his purpose. He was loyal. For a while." "You killed him." "I studied him." She scanned the room. Desperate. A panel. A switch. Faded label. System core. Hatch override. Key slot. Toggle. She raised the yellow toy key. "Don't," he growled. "I will. You won't make it to the surface." "I don't have to." She turned the key, pulled the lever. The lights above turned crimson. Alarms howled through the bunker. Elsewhere, Mara stood behind the green door. Inside, a room of horrors. Costumes, clown suits, ranger uniforms, animal masks, bloodied, hung like trophies. She backed out. A whisper slithered. Behind her. "You let her touch the switch. You broke the cycle. Now we root deeper." She ran. Back in the gallery, the custodian lunged. Holly struck him with a chair. He stumbled. She bolted, sprinting through the red-lit halls. His howl, furious, primal, echoed behind her. From the depths, a sound, distant, mechanical. The hatch was opening. July 2024, Tree 9 excavation site. Sheriff Bauer stood at the cleared shaft, watching federal agents descend into the dark. A voice from below called up, "We've got remains!" At least 2 bodies. Then, silence. A pause. And small footprints, fresh, leading out. Bauer turned. In the trees, movement. A blonde girl, teenage, watching. Then gone. Back in 1995. Holly reached the stairwell base. Above, moonlight, wind. She pulled herself out, the hatch wide enough. Behind her, footsteps. But she didn't look back. She slammed the hatch shut, collapsed on her back, stared at the stars. She was out, but the earth below still breathed. July 20th, 1995. Dawn. Holly wandered, legs raw, mind fractured. Jacob's face, Mara's warning, the green door. She walked toward sunlight. Every sound behind her made her flinch. When rangers finally found her, ash-covered, bleeding, they didn't believe her. "Where's your partner?" "Gone," she whispered. "Where have you been?" "Under," she said. "Buried alive." 2 days later, Mariposa County Medical Center. Holly sat across from Sheriff Bauer, wrapped in a blanket. "There were others," she whispered. "Children, cameras." A study. Bauer leaned forward. "Can you draw it?" She tried. What emerged was chaos. Rectangles, circles, tally marks, rooms that fed into themselves. There was a girl. "Mara, she helped me." "Is she still there?" She said she couldn't leave. That night, a team followed Holly's map. The hatch stood open, but the bunker was empty. No bodies, no cameras, no proof. Only one message, carved into bark near the entrance. Session 3 begins now. July 24th, 1995. Oakland Post Office. A VHS arrived. No postage, no return. Label, Session 3, Tree 9, inside, static. Then footage. A girl, older, Mara. Her eyes hollow. A shadow moved behind her. Her voice, robotic. "This is Subject 48. Ready for instruction." July 2024. FBI Field Office. Kellerman stood before a wall of faces. Strings connecting disappearances. Tree 9 was the nexus. "This wasn't one site," she muttered. "It was a system." In the center, a photo, the green door. Under it, one question. Where did Session 3 go? 1995. Holly's apartment. She unplugged everything. TV, phone, smoke alarm. But the static returned. One night, an envelope appeared. Inside, a VHS label. Subject 47, review for approval, Session 4 pending. She didn't call anyone. She sat in silence, trembling, inserted the tape. Her on-screen, sleeping, then inside the bunker, then before the green door. Her own voice whispered, "Session 4, we'll be better." She screamed, but it was already in her. August 15th, 1995. Sheriff's Office, another envelope. Inside, a photo. A new trail marker nailed to a tree. It read, "Welcome, subjects. Tree 9 is open." Date, September 1st. Sheriff Bauer stared, then picked up the phone. "Get Kellerman, underground." The screens glowed again. Mara stood at the center, barefoot, aged, still watching. She pointed to the camera. "Subject 47 is approved. Session 4 begins soon. September 1st, 1995. Ridge Hollow Trail. 2 hikers signed the register. Looping north past Tree 9, back Monday." No one saw them leave. A new placard marked the trail. Route deeper. July 2024. Oregon coast. Holly stood on a cliff, wind in her hair, camera bag across her shoulder. She hadn't spoken about Tree 9 in 30 years. But the tapes still came, every year on July 15th, until this year. The final tape arrived. Not children, not Mara. It showed her, In the control room, hands on the switch, her voice into the mic. Let's begin again. She didn't know if it had already happened, or if it was still to come. Inside the envelope, one final note. There's no such thing as a final subject. There's only the next one.